The wedding cake was 5 tiers high, the champagne flowed like a river, and the bride's lace was the most expensive in the room. Everyone called Amina the luckiest woman in the world. They saw the diamond ring on her finger and the way her husband Kelvin smiled for the cameras. But as the last guest left and the hotel room door clicked shut, Amina looked at the man she had just sworn to spend forever with, and a cold shiver ran down her spine. She realized that while the world was celebrating her union, she had just signed her own death warrant. She said, "I do," but she had said it to a stranger. Amina grew up in a home where marriage was treated like the only certificate a woman truly needed to be respected. By the time she turned 29, the pressure from her mother and her aunties had become a heavy daily weight. They would tell her, "Amina, look at your younger sister. She's already on her second child." They told her that beauty fades, but a husband's name is what gives a woman value. Under that pressure, Amina met Kevin. On paper, Kevin was a dream man. He was a senior manager at a big oil firm. He drove a black SUV that turned heads around, and he spoke with an accent that made Amina's parents beam with pride. He was polite, he was generous, and he was very, very fast. Just 3 months after they met, Kevin was already at her father's house with wine and kola nuts, asking for Amina's hand in marriage. Amina's best friend, Sandra, was the only person who saw the cracks. Sandra tried to warn her a month before the wedding. She told Amina, "Have you noticed how he talks down to waiters? Have you noticed how he gets so angry when you don't pick up his calls on the first string? The man is possessive and his temper is like a ticking bomb." But Amina was too busy choosing flowers and silk. She told herself that once they got married, Kevin would relax. She thought his jealousy was just his way of showing love. The wedding was a dream. Kevin spent millions of naira. Amina looked at herself in the mirror, draped in white silk, and ignored the tiny voice in her head that was screaming, "Run!" She walked down the aisle, looked into Kevin's eyes and said, "I do," with a smile that did not quite reach her heart. The reality hit her before the wedding makeup was even washed off her face. The couple arrived at their hotel suite after the reception. Amina was exhausted, her feet were aching, and she just wanted to rest. As she was struggling with the zipper of her dress, her phone rang. It was a congratulatory call from one of her male cousins. She picked it up, laughing and thanking him for the gifts he had sent. When she hung up, the air in the room went ice cold. Kevin wasn't smiling anymore. He walked up to her, his face inches from hers, and the smell of alcohol on his breath was suffocating. "Who was that?" he asked, his voice low and dangerous. Amina stammered, "Kelvin, it was just my cousin, Junior. He was..." Before she could finish, Kevin snatched the phone from her hand and threw it against the wall. It shattered into pieces. "From today," he said, "no man calls you unless I say so. You belong to me now, Amina, not your family, not your friends, me." Amina stood there in her white wedding dress, trembling. The man she thought was her protector had turned into her dictator in less than 2 hours. The months that followed were a living nightmare. It didn't happen all at once. It was a slow, calculated theft of Amina's identity. First, Kevin convinced her to take a break from her high-paying job, claiming he wanted her to be a relaxed queen at home. But once she resigned, he took her car keys and stopped her monthly allowance, making her beg for even the smallest amount of money to buy groceries. He became the director of her life. He changed the locks on the house so she couldn't sleep without him knowing. Every night, like a ritual, he would sit her down on the edge of the bed and demand her phone. He would scroll through her emails, her WhatsApp messages, and even her call logs from 3 days prior. If he saw a name he did not recognize, or if she took too long to answer a question, the night would end in tears and serious beatings. Amina became a shadow of herself. She started wearing heavy foundation to hide the darkness under her eyes and long-sleeve blouses to cover the finger-shaped bruises on her arms, even in the sweltering heat of the afternoon. When her mother visited, Kevin would sit right beside Amina, his hands resting firmly on her shoulder, a gesture that looked like love to an outsider, but to Amina it was a warning. It was his own way of saying, "Don't you dare say a word." She stayed for 2 years because the walls of society were taller than the walls of her house. She was terrified of the shame of being a divorcee. She remembered the day she tried to tell her mother about Kelvin's temper, and her mother simply said, Amina, marriage is about endurance. Close your eyes to his faults and pray harder. Do you want the church members to laugh at us? So Amina prayed. She prayed for Kelvin to change. She prayed for more patience. She prayed until her knees were sore. But the turning point came on a Tuesday evening over a simple plate of dinner. Amina had forgotten to buy the specific brand of spice Kelvin liked. The explosion that followed was unlike anything she had ever seen. He didn't just shout, he broke every plate in the kitchen one by one, telling her she was useless and that without him she would be a nobody on the streets. He left her standing in the middle of the broken ceramic plates, shaking and alone. That night, Amina did not cry. Instead, she walked to the bedroom and looked at her reflection in the mirror. She looked at the hollow cheeks, the dull eyes, and the spirits that had been beaten into submission. She did not recognize the woman staring back at her. The Amina who was full of life, the girl who loved to laugh and dream, was gone. She realized then that she didn't need to wait for a miracle to fall from the sky. She realized that God had already given her the miracle, the strength to choose life over a slow death. She spent the next few days in total silence, acting like the perfect wife to lower his guard. Then one afternoon, while Kelvin was away at a business meeting, Amina did not hesitate. She didn't pack her expensive clothes or her designer bags. Those were just reminders of her cage. She packed a small backpack with her original birth certificate, her passport, and a few old photos of her family. She walked to the kitchen, took off the heavy diamond ring that had felt like a shackle for 2 years, and placed it quietly on the kitchen counter. She didn't even leave a note. There was nothing left to say. She walked out of that front door, hailed a taxi, and never looked back at the house that had almost become her graveyard. I hope you enjoyed every bit of this story. Please don't forget to like, drop a comment, and share. Bye, and see you in the next one.